One day, a girl by the name of Lisa had enough of her life. She was just sick and tired of living this constant repetitive life and not going anywhere. Not to mention she had been having these horrific family problems. So she grabbed a piece of paper and a pen and began to write a goodbye letter. And once she was done, she hopped on her bike, and as soon as she was about to leave, everything went black. But before we continue with today's video, if you're a fan of true crime stories, just scary stories in general, then I highly suggest you subscribe to my YouTube channel, as that's all we do, and I upload once a week. And also a big massive shout out to all my subscribers, and all the new subscribers that are subscribing to my channel. I hope you enjoy my journey to become a full-time YouTuber. But with all that being said, let's begin. Lisa McVey was a quiet girl, and she was born into a small family in Tampa, Florida. And well, her upbringing wasn't the best at all. You see, Lisa was born into a family full of drug addicts, and for a while she had been living with her single mother, as her dad decided that having a family wasn't for him anymore. Lisa knew she couldn't stay with her mother for too long, as her drug problems were getting worse, and quite frankly out of control. And unfortunately she would be correct, as one day Lisa's mother came back home, and she was so intoxicated with heroin she fainted and almost died on the spot, which forced Lisa to call 911, which then the police would also show up and take Lisa away from her mother, due to her mother not being fit enough to take care of Lisa. And for some time Lisa would change from foster care home to foster care home, searching for that right family to take care of her, because at this point of her life the only thing that she had been doing is taking care of her own family. And at this point of her life she was only 14 years old, and she hadn't really had a parental figure in her life. And for a while this horrible cycle would continue, and she still wouldn't find a home until she decided that the best option is to go live with her grandmother. And she didn't really want to live with her grandmother, but that was the best option, so she took it. And you see, this is when the problems began to get bigger. Her grandmother actually did take care of her, but the problem was the grandmother's boyfriend. He would do horrific things to her, such as making her clean up after him, and also assaulting her. And unfortunately he would begin to SA her, and it started to become a regular occurrence. But this is the heartbreaking point. Her grandmother, the only woman Lisa thought she had been given the parental figure to, and as her boyfriend was doing these horrible things to Lisa, she would gloss over it, which was a truly heartbreaking point for Lisa. Every time Lisa voiced her concerns or just downright cry for help, her grandmother would tell her that I'll talk to him, or just to grow up. So at this point Lisa felt hopeless, and she didn't want to leave because she hated the foster care homes. And if she didn't want to stay with her grandmother or not go to the foster care homes, she'll be homeless. And for 3 years Lisa would endure this horrific act against her by her grandmother's boyfriend. And even though she had all this happening to her, there was one thing that kept her going: her work. Because her work life was the complete opposite to her home life. When Lisa turned 15, she got a job as a cashier at the local shop that she began to adore doing, because all of her customers would treat her with respect and would always lend a helping hand in need. Not to mention her co-workers made everything so much better, and it made Lisa think that this is the right thing for me. And for a while Lisa would enjoy every second of working in the shop, but once she finished her shift and went back home, the pain would commence, as her grandmother's boyfriend would continue to do his heinous acts against her. And unfortunately it just kept on getting worse and worse. At one point Lisa actually tried to fight back against him, but he would pull out a gun, and he would threaten her if she tried to fight back he would shoot her. And well, this was one of Lisa's breaking points, because now the immense suffering that she was feeling outweighed the actual good times she had at work. And well, she told herself that I can't do this anymore. And so she woke up the next day still sore from the night before, and she turned to her desk and began to write on a piece of paper. And she kept writing on this piece of paper until the first page was completely full, and then she turned it around and continued to write on the other side. And as she was writing this heartfelt message, tears began to stream down her eyes and onto the piece of paper. And once she was done writing the message, she rubbed her eyes and then put the piece of paper on the desk. And well, unfortunately this note was a goodbye letter, as Lisa made up her mind to unalive herself. But she didn't want to do it yet because she still had work. So she packed her things up and got on her bike, and everything went normal. And when she got to the shop, her co-workers were a bit taken aback when she began to tell them these emotional speeches of how much they meant to her. And at first they thought Lisa was leaving, but Lisa assured her that she was just showing them some appreciation for being so kind to her. But of course little did they know this would be the last time they see Lisa. So a couple of hours passed and the sun is setting, and the street lights began to turn on, and all of Lisa's co-workers began to pack up, but not Lisa. Lisa told her boss and her fellow co-workers that she's going to stay behind and clean up the shop before she left. And so thankful, the co-workers and the boss tell her thank you, and they all leave. And so now, with only one bulb lighting up the full shop, Lisa begins to close the shutter to the front entrance and turns everything off. And at this point, she was fully committed to do her plan that she set in the morning. And she took her first step outside, and all she could hear is the car zooming past the shop. And as she looks up into the sky, all she thinks is, anyone gonna remember me when I'm gone? And then she begins to walk to her bike, and as soon as she grabs onto the bike, everything goes black. A couple of minutes later, Lisa actually finally wakes up, but as she opens her eyes, she notices that everything's dark. And so she tries to move her hand to remove whatever's on her face, but quickly realizes that her hands are tied. And that's when she starts to hear a car driving and the radio being played, and that's when she starts to panic. She begins to kick and scream whatever was in front of her, and that's when the car came to a screeching halt. And at this point, she knew that she was in a car. Just a couple of seconds later, a door opens, and all Lisa could hear is footsteps coming closer and closer towards her, until the footsteps comes to a stop next to her ear. And then something opens, which lets some light in from the street lights. And at this point, Lisa began to cry and just shout for help, but all Lisa heard was, "Shut up or I'll kill you." And the realization kicked into Lisa's brain that she had been kidnapped. But just before this mysterious criminal was about to close the door, Lisa managed to look underneath her blindfolds, and she got a glimpse of what this person looked like. And this person was a white male and had a mustache. But due to the reflection of the light, that's all she saw, before ultimately the door was closed. And so the car began to drive off, and Lisa knew now that she could kind of see underneath her blindfolds, so she began to look around to see if she could figure out what car she was in. Because in her mind, she thought that she was captured by her grandmother's boyfriend, because he was also a white male and he also had a mustache. And she kept looking, and there was this little hole in this trunk that kind of shows the outside. And when Lisa saw that, she pounced at it. And with a little glimpse that she had, she saw that she was in a red car. Lisa was also an avid true crime fan, so she had been watching plenty of shows of people being kidnapped. And one of the things that the captive people did was count how many seconds they're on the road for. And so she began to count, and suddenly, like in a cartoon movie, something clicked in her brain. She remembered that when the man first opened the trunk, Lisa saw a sign that was behind the man saying "Going North." With all this information, she knew that if she somehow escaped, she had some whereabouts of where this man was going, which she could tell the police and also try to find her way back home. And for nearly 40 minutes, they would continue to drive until they finally got to their destination. This man again would get out from his car and go to the trunk and then lead Lisa inside to his house, where he would begin to assault Lisa for hours and hours, until to the point where Lisa was just pleading for him to just let her go. And unfortunately, that wouldn't happen, and for the next 26 hours, Lisa would endure this pain once again, but from a different man. And once this man was done, he would sit Lisa down on his couch and began to ask some questions, such as her age or if she went to school. And for some time, Lisa would answer these questions with one-word answers, because she knew that she was going to die and she didn't want to give him any more satisfaction. But for the next 2 hours, the man kept asking Lisa questions, and at this point, Lisa felt that this man was quite gullible. And at this point, Lisa began to humanize herself. Most notably, she told her captive that her dad was ill and she was the only caregiver, and she would just beg for him to let her go. But the man would just snap and continue to assault Lisa, but he suddenly stopped and told Lisa to get into his car. And so Lisa, confused and downright scared, she did what she was told. And at this point, Lisa knew that she was going to get killed, so she began to touch everything around the house, from walls to tables, to make sure that if she died, at least the police could find her fingerprints around this man's house and hopefully get justice. And once she got into the trunk of the car, the man told her that, "I'm going to take you to the gas station and let you go, but only because of your father, not you." And Lisa began to thank the man and told him that, "I'll never tell anybody this happened." And around 4:30 a.m, the man would get to the gas station and open his trunk and would let Lisa out, but told Lisa that, "Don't open your blindfolds until I'm fully gone." And so again, Lisa did what she was told, and as soon as the man left, she opened the blindfolds up and began to run home. And early in the morning, she would arrive back home, and once she arrived, her grandmother's boyfriend began to beat her and accusing her of cheating. And Lisa again would continue to plead and tell him that, "This is what's happened to me." Both the grandmother and the boyfriend did not believe her at all, and her grandmother actually put Lisa into a bedroom and told her that lying is bad and it can lead to bad things. And Lisa at this point is crying hysterically because she managed to somehow survive this horrific crime against her, and she thought that her grandmother would believe her, but she didn't. And all the pain that she suffered in the last couple of days came in a form of tears running straight down from her cheek. And after crying for a while, Lisa made a last-ditched effort to get her justice back. Lisa waited for both her grandmother and her boyfriend to go to bed, which then she walked slowly downstairs and called 911. The police were called and Lisa informed them that this is what happened to me. And the operator on the line was shocked and immediately sent some officers over. And at this point, the grandmother and the boyfriend woke up and began to scream at Lisa for calling the police and making the police come all the way over just to keep her lie going. And at first, the two officers were on the guardian's side, but they noticed that Lisa had bruises on her arm and her upper shoulder, and they began to insist to investigate further. And one of the officers, named Sergeant Larry Pinkerton, began to poke more answers out of Lisa. And thanks to all that information Lisa remembered from before, they had somewhat of an idea of what person that they were looking for, but unfortunately it wasn't enough for them to make an arrest. A couple of days later, Lisa sat down to watch some TV and saw on the news that there was a report about a murder victim in the area, and Lisa saw this and was convinced that her kidnapper was the killer. And she rushed towards her phone and called Larry and told him that, "You need to pick me up, I've got more information." So Larry came and Lisa began to tell the story again, but more in detail this time. But she was missing some parts that she couldn't remember, and it was really frustrating for her. And Larry could see this and told her that you should go on a jog, because going on a jog helps you remember things. So Lisa agreed and said goodbye to Larry and went back home and told her grandmother's boyfriend that, "Hey, can I go on a jog?" And in a huff he said, "No, you can't leave ever again." So taken aback, Lisa was shocked and just had enough of him. So she rang up the police and told the police all the bad things that he did to her and all the trauma that he caused her, resulting in him getting arrested. With one person arrested, Lisa was still not satisfied and wanted her attacker to be arrested as well. And the police took her to a centre for runaway teens, and the lady at the front desk came up to her with a bunch of different pictures of men and asked her, "Does any of these men look like your attacker?" And she instantly knew that the man in the middle looked exactly like her attacker, and his name was Bobby Joe Long. So the police began to track down Bobby thanks to Lisa remembering where she went. And in 12 days after Lisa's abduction, the police finally found Bobby and took him into custody, and they began to interview him. And at first he kept silent, but after a while trying to push for answers, he finally cracked, and he would confess to committing 10 murders, and 2 of them murders happened when the police were looking for him. Bobby would be found guilty and would be sentenced to death. And as for Lisa, her life changed for the better. As she aged out from the runaway centre, she moved in with her caring aunt and uncle and took up different variety of jobs. And in 2004 she signed up for the police academy, and she later joined the Hillsborough County Sheriff Office, the same department that arrested her abductor. So that'll be it for today's video. If you're a fan of true crime stories or just scary stories in general, then I highly suggest you subscribe to my YouTube channel, as that's all I do. And also comment below about your thoughts on this story. And also once again, thank you to all my subscribers that have subscribed to me. But with all that being said, thank you for watching, and yeah, goodbye.